But one thing I know that we're all going to face when it comes to suffering, and maybe is more relevant for all of us, is actually how to help a friend when they are suffering. Because it's one thing going through the suffering yourself. In fact, for some of us, we would prefer it that way. We'd prefer to go through suffering than watch other people to go through suffering. Because helping people go through suffering is very complicated. It can be very complex. It can bring up a lot of things in our life. And we need to learn to navigate it well. And we need to learn from the scriptures about how we're going to do that. So we're going to look at the story of Job once again. And in the book really, the majority of it is dedicated to how to be a friend to suffering. And we are given illustrations from Job's friends about what it means to lament with a friend. So let's go to the Bible. We're going to go to Job 2, verse 11. And the Bible says this. We're just going to study it together, okay? So I'm going to stop. We're going to talk about different things, and we're just going to study it together. I'm just going to talk with you today. Today is just a discussion, and I want to pass along some wisdom to help you grow. So the Bible says this. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place. Stop there. I want you to know, and I want you to be encouraged by the fact that all of Job's friends lived in a different location. They're not local. Some of us would love it if our friends lived next door. We would love it if we lived in Friends, the sitcom. Because in Friends, the sitcom, they're across the road from each other. And that's why we love it. Because we desire the friendships of Rachel and Monica and Joey and Chandler, that they live next door to each other and they do life together. And apparently, they have no other family they have to be responsible for. That's what I love about the sitcoms. It's like they meet their sister once a series. I'm like, that's not how real families work, okay? You have to call your family way more regularly. But we love that fact. But let me encourage you, even in this book, we are told that Job's 3 friends live somewhere else, which tells me you can have good friendships with people you don't always see. Don't you love the friend that even if you haven't seen them for a couple of years, you see them again and it's like you've never left each other? We all love those friends, right? Because to do that though, you have to be a low maintenance friend. That's the problem. But I just want to encourage you, because in this world today, we are all over the place. We live far away from the people that we do life with. And actually, even some of my closest friends, one of my closest friends lives in Estonia. Pastor Evo, him and I actually talk quite regularly. And when we have major life challenges, we call each other. In fact, Evo recently went through some serious suffering, and I used to call him about it. But luckily, you and I have modern communication, modern technology to build friendships. What I'm trying to instruct you with here is use the technology to your advantage to actually build friendships. Okay? I want to give you one little tip here. This is going to be full of practical tips today. I knew a couple that for a season of their marriage actually lived in different nations. And when I chatted to the husband about this, I said to him, how do you do this? Because I know that FaceTime is great, but it's quite intense. You know, because you're just staring at each other and you have to talk. Now, me and Emily have been married. I don't know how often we just sit there and stare at each other and talk for like half an hour. Maybe we should do that more. But it's quite intense, isn't it? And so I was like, how do you kind of maintain that fun side of it? How do you maintain that energy? And he told me that what they do is they play a game together. They play Words with Friends. I think that's the game, you know, the little Scrabble game. And what that does for each other is that it helps them just remain connected in a way that just is easy to connect with, that keeps the fun in the marriage. So a little tip for you. What I'm trying to instruct you with is that long-distance friends are very, very possible. Now, these friends are Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shuthite, and Zophar, the Naamathite. No, I said that wrong. Naamathite. These are his friends. And they made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. Please check out this Bible verse. They made an appointment. My friends, I will tell you as a friend, if you want friends, be intentional about your friendships. You actually have to choose good friends. You cannot choose your family, and in some ways you cannot choose your periphery of friends, but you can choose friends that are core to you. I have two best friends. One of them is waiting for me in heaven. The other is here on earth with me. And my friend Rory, who is currently in heaven, chilling out with JC and waiting for us all. When I met Rory, I had actually been praying for months before that for a Christian best friend. Why? Because I knew I needed one. I had not grown up with an on-fire Christian best friend. And I knew if I really wanted to grow, I am going to need an on-fire Christian best friend. So I prayed for Rory, and Rory came into my life. Rory and I went to a New Year's Eve party, and we bumped into a guy called Jamie. We led him to the Lord, and Rory discipled Jamie, who you all know and love. And I remember very specifically deciding in my head, I need these guys. And what's really funny is if you actually ever sat down with me, Jamie, and Rory, the only thing we ever actually had in common was God. Rory, check this out, Rory likes cars. I'm like, bro, come on. Adam would like him more than I was like, bro. In fact, the only thing we could bond over was playing Halo together. In fact, one time, Rory even said this to me. This is what Rory said to me. He said, Liam, if we have nothing in common, I don't even know why we're friends. That's what he said to me. This is Rory's humor if you know him. And the truth is, we didn't have much in common. Jamie comes along. He's like boxing all the time. He wants to go for runs every day. Rory at that point, he's not running at this point. And he's like, he wants to drive a really fast car. Jamie wants to run. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of these things. Like, I want to hang out with people. And guess what? My two best friends don't want to hang out with people. They don't even like people. They want to be by themselves. And I'm like, what is bonding us here? Why are we together? But I tell you why we were together, because all three of us intentionally chose it. Because we knew we needed it. Rory knew he needed a friend because my friend Rory suffered with cystic fibrosis all his life. He knew he needed a brother to lift him up. I knew I needed a brother to make me think better. Rory used to rebuke me of arrogance, used to call me out for my lack of understanding, make me think deeper. And Jamie needed us for all kinds of reasons. I'm joking. Just because he's probably watching somewhere, right? But we intentionally chose. Now, please hear me in this, because this happens all the time. Stop waiting around for a good, perfect best friend to bump into you. Either start praying for it or decide someone's going to be your best friend. Pick someone who you know is good for you. Jamie is good for my life. He makes me think deeper. He makes me read wider. He makes me know more things. He encourages me. He gives me a place for humor and laughter. I need him in my life. You need a friend in your life. If you don't have someone that close to you, decide someone. And even, please hear this, I was blessed that Rory was 2 years older than me and Jamie is 2 years younger than me. But they don't have to be like that. One of my closest friends in my life truly is Shola Osanoiki. He is in his 50s. But I can go around his house and we have so much history together. We are friends. He is nearly 20 years older than me. But it does not matter. Stop defining friendship by the world's views. Now, with Shola, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to banter with Shola like I banter with Jamie, okay? I respect his age, but he can still be my friend. Some of us just need to decide who your friend is going to be. I'm serious about this. I am really, really serious because I see this all the time. People just wait around, waiting for someone to come in and be their friend. Go and intentionally choose one. Seriously, make it happen. It's the same with mentors. It's the same with fathers of faith. If you don't have one of these people in your life, and you're like, I've always wanted a mentor, someone to look out for me. I've always wanted a father or a mother in faith. Tell someone. Tell Emily, you are now my mother in the faith. Tell them that you need that relationship and start to be intentional about making it happen. So they came together to show sympathy and to comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. What's that telling me? It's telling me that they knew him well enough to recognize him. Please hear me on this. Friendship, the way to grow any friendship is very simple. I know this is basic stuff, but I want to remind you this evening, is get to know them. Get to know them to a level that when you walk into a store and you're about to buy them a snack, you would know what snack they would buy themselves. If they're about to watch a movie, you know what type of movie they're about to watch. Lord of the Rings, Jamie. Rory would be layer cake. I know. It's a gangster film, but that's what he would watch, right? You gotta know them so well so that when they are in suffering, you can tell because you don't recognize them anymore. Something about them is off. I don't quite know it, but I don't recognize you in the same way. Oh, I see now, because you're in suffering and you need me to realign you to who you are. Come on, somebody. I'm getting hot preaching. I hope this is helping you. Seriously, you need to know them. Don't make your friendship about what you need. Make your friendship about knowing them. Learn to know everything about them. What's their most embarrassing memory? What's the thing in the conversation that's going to trigger them? Yeah? Because if you're in a social setting, someone makes a banterous joke at them on a sore point that you know is going to trigger them, you can step in as a friend. You can take the bullet for them. I want to tell you just one little act of friendship that I saw like this. When I first arrived at Kerith Community Church, the first time I'd ever been to a youth event there, I was going to meet loads of youth, right? And when I arrived, someone gave me a can of Coke. Yay, great can of Coke. I started drinking the can of Coke. I'm wearing a white T-shirt like I am to this day. To this day? Like I've worn every day. Like I am today. To this day, I've worn white T-shirts in memory of this moment. I'm actually getting really warm. Now, I was wearing a white T-shirt, I took a drink, Coke spilled, and it spilled down my top. I'm hanging out with a friend of mine who is older than me, a guy by the name of Lee Leighton Matthews. I know you don't know him. One day he will come to Flow, but I love him to bits. Now, Lee thought in that moment, with great selflessness, thought, what's Liam thinking right now? And he knew that I'm thinking, I'm in a new place, I'm meeting new people, and I've got a stain on my only T-shirt, and it's white. So what does he do? He spills some Coke on his own top and says, if you hang out with me, we'll now make a joke of it. That is friendship. Do you see what he did? He didn't think about himself. He thought about me. He knew me. And so that when I had a moment of suffering, even as simple as spilling a drink in a new place, meeting new people, he could think, I know how Liam would react to this. That's what friendship needs to be. So that when your friend goes through suffering, even sometimes you will actually join them in the suffering. Well, my friend Rory, many times in a hospital room. Many hours in a hospital room. So what if Rory's going to hospital, guess where I'm going? I'm going to hospital. And if Rory's going to lose an evening in the hospital, guess what I'm doing? I'm losing an evening in hospital. And me and Jamie used to go, should I tell you some stories? This is just for fun. This has nothing to do with the message, but I'm hoping it helps. Me and Jamie used to go to hospital, and we'd see Rory, and we would always play church. And we would it was really funny. We used to love it. We used to find it funny. Maybe you won't. But we used to pretend that we were in a church service, and we would start speaking, and the mics wouldn't work. And Jamie would do an offering and really call people out of their sin. And we'd make a salvation call every time. And we would just do it in his hospital room because he would miss church. And we also had this joke where every time we left, 5 minutes later, we'd walk back in as though we'd never been there. And so we'd start the whole conversation on again. And for like 10 minutes, we'd repeat the beginning of our conversation. And then we would finally say goodbye to Rory after we prayed for him. So we used to have these jokes because if Rory is losing time in hospital, we lose time in hospital. If your family is struggling, I'm struggling. Chris and Ruth, if you're struggling with your home and it's stressful, I'm stressed with you. Yeah? That's what friendship is, because I want to know you and know you in your suffering. In fact, Paul even writes this about Christ. I want to know Christ and his suffering. Even Paul is saying, I recognize that part of being a friend of God and knowing God is knowing what it is like to suffer in his name. That's friendship. And actually, the Bible continues talking about this. And they saw him from a distance, and they did not recognize him. So they raised their voices and wept. And they tore their robes, and they sprinkled dust on their heads towards heaven. You see, again, this is them saying, if you're going to cry and suffer about it, well, we're going to do it with you. We're going to do it alongside you. In fact, just so you know, this was a very tradition back in that day. That's how you expressed mourning. Can I encourage you, if your friend is in suffering, maybe help them by starting the expression of mourning, right? Because lament really is a dramatic expression of mourning. That's what it is. That's what the word means. And sometimes, especially in our British world, especially for men in the house, it can be hard to get the tears out. It's not that we don't feel the pain, it's just we don't know how to let this out. And I want to encourage you, as a friend, sometimes you need to go beside them and you need to help them express it. This was so healthy for that community. In fact, this is still the same. They wouldn't necessarily rip their clothes and put sackcloth and ashes, but in different nations, they have different expressions for mourning. If you go to Greece or Italy and a woman is a widow of an older age, she'll always wear black from now on. That's how it works. So if you're going on holiday to Greece recently in this summer and you see a woman all in black and she's an older lady, she's widowed. Because she is expressing her mourning. And we need to help people do this. And guys, please hear me. You must sometimes step into action and expression to get mourning. Now, this can be hard for some guys, especially those who are not expressionate in other areas of life. You're not particularly affectionate. You're not very lovey-dovey. Even at church, you'll lift the one hand, but that's as far as your expression will go. If that is you, when it comes to really serious lamenting and suffering, you will find it hard to get those emotions out. But please hear me. If you do not get them out, they queue up until you cannot handle it, the system crashes, and you just go numb on the feelings. That's how you know you're in trouble, when you just can't even feel it anymore. And you know that this is meant to be sad to you, but you cannot feel it anymore. Find ways to express it, to get it out of you. Tear your clothes if you need to. I'm being serious. Sometimes you just need to let the anger out. For me, when Rory passed away, the surprising thing that got me was dancing. Because my body was moving and somehow it unlocked my brain and I began to weep as I danced because I lost my best friend. Because God gave me a key in that moment to help me release it. What I'm trying to help you, if you're a friend though and your friend is suffering, maybe you can help them do that. Help them find space to lament. And the Bible continues and it says, and they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights. I want to tell you, love in friendship is spelled Time. I know everyone's got their love languages. No, I've got this love. Don't ever give me a gift because I'm not gifts. You have to tell me how amazing I am every time because that's how I get love. No. Don't get entitled. That was my only problem with that book. Everyone's started getting so entitled. This is how you must love me. Okay, calm down. But I'll tell you this. Relationships, their love language is Time. If you are a parent, that's how you love your children. If you are a spouse, that's how you love each other. If you are a friend, it takes time. I love the fact that these guys sat with them for 7 days and 7 nights. That's a long time. That's a long time. Don't rush your friendships. Okay? In fact, one of the best things really for friendship is history. And that takes time to build. I tell you what, Rory, Jamie, Maria, Emily, and myself are bonded for life because we were there in the moment when Rory passed away. And the richness of this moment was so potent that it bonded us in a way that can really never be broken. Even if Jamie and Maria decide Flow Church is not for them anymore, and they go and leave and go to another nation, they go and do something completely different, and we don't see them, even if that happens, in 20 years' time, we would have shared a moment of history. We've been through time together. And so when you're making new friends, for the start, it might feel awkward. And you might feel, oh, I don't really know if they're my type of person, if they're my tribe or whatever. Just give it time. Because Jamie is not like me. Maria is not like Emily. But time has bonded us. History will bond you. And so I want to encourage you, give your friendships time. And then the Bible continues, says that no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was great. Obviously, this is clear. And for some of you, all I'm saying is like common sense. Some of you are like, Liam, doesn't everyone already do this? Because that's the way you're wired. For some people, they're like, oh my days, I never realized. Because I think I'm more in that camp. We just didn't realize that this is what friendship really requires. And I want to encourage you that presence is so powerful in friendship. Just being beside Rory in the hospital would have helped drive away so many lies of the enemy just because I'm there. Just the distraction of a friend. Somebody to remind you that you can get through this, that you're going to make this, that even in the worst kinds of suffering, that there is somebody with you just to alleviate the pressure of suffering for a moment is incredibly powerful. So I want to encourage you to be present.